The rumor said he didn't want women. The coldness in his eyes confirmed it. But when Tara Onima walked into Ha-Jun Kang's world to pay her father's debt, everything he'd built to protect himself began to crumble. One question. One challenge. Why don't we find out? And suddenly, the untouchable Mafia heir found himself wanting what he swore he'd never need: her touch, her warmth, her heart. In a mansion filled with whispers and a marriage built on obligation, two broken souls discover that sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't the underworld lurking outside, but the feelings blooming inside. This is a story of walls breaking, hearts healing, and love that refuses to be denied. If you love slow burn romance that burns bright, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more emotional stories, and drop a comment telling us your favorite moment. Now, let's begin. The whispers started before Tara even reached the kitchen. She stood outside the mansion's massive modern kitchen, her hand pressed against the cool steel of the door frame, listening to the staff inside. 3 weeks. She'd been Ha-Jun Kang's wife for 3 weeks, and still, the house treated her like a temporary guest who'd overstayed her welcome. Poor thing doesn't know, does she? A woman's voice drifted through the crack in the door. Know what? Another responded, younger, curious. That he's never touched a woman. Not once. My cousin worked for the Park family, said young Master Kong turned down their daughter without even looking at her twice. And the Kim girl? Same thing. He doesn't want women. He wants. Stop it, an older voice cut in sharply. That's not our business. Tara pushed through the door. All 3 women froze, their faces flushing various shades of embarrassment. She moved past them calmly, reaching for the kettle, filling it with water. Her hands remained steady even as her mind raced. Mrs. Kang, we didn't, the youngest one started. It's fine, Tara said softly, setting the kettle on the stove. I was just making tea. Would any of you like some? They scattered like leaves in wind, mumbling excuses. Tara stood alone in the kitchen, watching steam rise from the kettle's spout, and tried to organize her thoughts. She'd suspected something was wrong with the marriage from the beginning. Ha-Jun barely looked at her. He'd given her a bedroom on the opposite end of the mansion. Their wedding night, he'd told her the rules in a voice like ice over stone. Separate rooms. Separate lives. You'll have everything you need materially. Don't expect anything else. She'd nodded, accepting the terms, because what choice did she have? Her father's gambling debts had landed on her shoulders when he died, and the Kang family had offered one solution: marriage to their heir. Her freedom for her family's safety. But G.A.Y? She hadn't considered that possibility. The kettle whistled. She poured hot water over jasmine leaves and carried 2 cups down the hallway toward Ha-Jun's study. The mansion sprawled across 3 floors of glass and stone, all sharp angles and cold beauty, much like its owner. She found him where she always did after dinner, behind a massive desk, papers spread before him, his elegant profile illuminated by lamplight. She knocked softly on the open door. He didn't look up. I didn't call for anything. I know. I brought tea. She stepped inside, setting 1 cup on the corner of his desk, careful not to disturb his papers. I don't need. Jasmine. It helps with stress. She moved to leave. Tara. She stopped, surprised. He rarely used her name. When she turned, he was watching her with those dark, unreadable eyes that had haunted her since their first meeting. Yes! He seemed to struggle with something, his jaw tightening. Finally, he said, "Thank you for the tea." It was the first kind thing he'd said to her in 3 weeks. Something warm bloomed in her chest despite everything. You're welcome. She returned to her room and lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling. The house's whispers echoed in her mind. If it was true, if Ha-Jun truly wasn't attracted to women, then this marriage made even more sense. A contract. A cover. Protection for him, security for her. Nothing real. Nothing warm. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt hollow. The next morning, she found him in the dining room, reading something on his tablet while a plate of untouched breakfast sat before him. He wore a black suit that fit him like a weapon, his dark hair swept back from his face. Beautiful. That was the word that always came to mind, though she knew he'd hate it. He was beautiful in the way dangerous things often were. Good morning, she said, taking her seat across from him. He nodded without looking up. She watched him for a long moment, gathering courage. Hajun, can I ask you something personal? That got his attention. His eyes lifted, sharp and wary. What? The staff, they talk. I've heard things. She kept her voice gentle, non-accusatory. About why you agreed to this marriage. About your preferences. Something flickered across his face. Surprise? Anger? It vanished too quickly to tell. He set down his tablet with careful precision. What exactly did you hear? That you don't, she hesitated, choosing her words carefully. That you're not attracted to women. That you're gay. The silence that followed felt sharp enough to cut. Hajun's expression remained perfectly neutral, but she saw his fingers tighten on the edge of the table. When he finally spoke, his voice was dangerously soft. And if I am? Her heart squeezed. Then I understand why you've been so distant. Why you set those rules. I wish someone had told me before. It would have made things clearer. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against marble. For a moment she thought he would leave, but instead he walked around the table, stopping directly in front of her. She had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. You think you know me? The question came out quiet, almost gentle, but there was something underneath it that made her pulse quicken. You think you understand what I am? I'm trying to, she whispered. He leaned down, bracing his hands on the arms of her chair, caging her in. This close, she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. This close, she could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. I've let people believe many things about me, he said softly. Rumors protect me in ways truth never could. But you want to know the truth, Tara? She couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Yes. His gaze dropped to her mouth, then back to her eyes. Something in his expression made her stomach flip. Why don't we find out? Then he straightened and walked out, leaving her trembling in the chair, her heart hammering against her ribs. The next 3 days, Hajun avoided her completely. She saw him only in passing, catching glimpses of his back disappearing around corners, hearing his car leave early in the mornings before she woke. The house felt bigger, colder without even his distant presence. She tried to settle into a routine. She explored Seoul during the days, walked through markets and parks, practiced her Korean with patient shopkeepers. She cooked in the evenings, leaving plates for him that she found untouched in the morning. She read in the library, swam in the indoor pool, existed in the spaces he'd given her. But at night, alone in her enormous bed, she replayed that moment in the dining room over and over. The way he'd looked at her. The way he'd leaned close. The question that wasn't really a question. Why don't we find out? On the 4th evening, she was cooking jollof rice in the kitchen, music playing softly from her phone, when she felt the change in the air. She turned to find Hajun standing in the doorway, still in his suit but with his tie loosened, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. You cook, he said. I do. My mother taught me. She stirred the pot, trying to calm her suddenly racing pulse. Are you hungry? What are you making? Jollof rice. It's Nigerian. Comfort food. She smiled at him over her shoulder. Would you like to try it? He hesitated, then moved into the kitchen, maintaining careful distance. I've never had Nigerian food. Then you're missing out. She began plating 2 servings, adding fried plantains and chicken on the side. Sit. I don't. Sit, Hajun. She used the same gentle but firm tone she'd used with a skittish animal. He sat at the kitchen island. She placed the plate before him and took the seat beside him, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. He stared at the food like it might bite him. It won't kill you, she said, amused. I promise. He picked up a fork, took a careful bite. She watched his eyes widen slightly. Good, she asked. It's. He took another bite. It's excellent. Pride warmed her chest. They ate in silence for a while, comfortable in a way they'd never been before. She noticed he was left-handed. Noticed the small scar on his knuckle. Noticed how tired he looked. You work too much, she said quietly. Comes with the territory. Even territory needs rest. He set down his fork, turning to look at her fully. Why do you care? The question caught her off guard. Because you're my husband. On paper. Still counts. She held his gaze. And because you look exhausted. Because you don't eat properly. Because no one else seems to worry about you. Something cracked in his expression, there and gone. You're worried about me. Is that so strange? Yes. He stood abruptly, taking his plate to the sink. But he didn't leave. He stood there, hands braced on the counter, shoulders tense. She approached slowly, stopping a few feet away. "Ha-jun, why did you marry me?" "Really?" His laugh came out bitter. "You know why. Arrangements. Alliances. Strategy. But why me specifically? There must have been other options." He turned, leaning back against the counter, and for the first time, she saw real vulnerability in his face. "Because you were safe. Because the rumors meant you wouldn't expect anything from me. Because I thought." He stopped. "Thought what?" "That I could keep you at a distance." His eyes met hers. I was wrong. The air between them felt electric. Tara's pulse thundered in her ears. "The rumors aren't true, are they?" "No." "Then why?" "Because love is weakness." The words came out harsh. "Because caring about someone gives your enemies a target. Because everyone I've ever loved has been taken from me and used against me. The rumors protect me. Protect anyone who might." He trailed off. "Anyone who might what?" she whispered. He pushed off the counter, moving closer. "Anyone who might make me forget why I built those walls in the first place." "Ha-jun, you should stay away from me, Tara. I'm not a good man. I've done things that would horrify you. I've hurt people. I'll hurt you too, eventually." She stepped forward, closing the distance between them. "What if I'm not afraid?" His jaw clenched. "You should be, but I'm not." She reached up slowly, giving him time to move away. He didn't. Her palm touched his cheek, and she felt him flinch, then freeze. "I see who you're trying not to be, Ha-jun, and I think that person is tired." For a moment, just a moment, he leaned into her touch. His eyes closed. His breath shuddered. Then he jerked back like she'd burned him. "Go to bed, Tara." "Ha-jun, please." The words sounded like it hurt. "Just go." She left him standing in the kitchen, and when she looked back from the doorway, he was gripping the counter so hard his knuckles had gone white. The next morning, she found her broken bracelet on her bedside table, perfectly repaired. She hadn't even told him it was broken. Something was shifting. She felt it in the way Ha-jun started appearing in rooms she occupied, never speaking, just existing in the same space. In the way his eyes followed her across the dining room. In the way he'd started eating the meals she left for him. One evening, she found him in the library, a book open but clearly unread in his lap. She settled into the chair across from him with her own book. He glanced up, something like relief crossing his face. "What are you reading?" he asked. She showed him the cover. "Nigerian poetry." "You." He displayed his book. "Korean history." "Not really reading. Just pretending." She smiled. "Why?" "Because you're here." "Because." He set the book aside. "Because I wanted to be where you are." Her heart squeezed. "You could have just said that." "I don't know how to do this." His admission came out quiet. "I don't know how to be close to someone. We can learn together." He studied her for a long moment. "You're very patient with me. You're worth the patience." Something in his expression cracked open. Before she could process it, he spoke again. "Tell me about Nigeria. About your family." So she did. She told him about Lagos, about her mother's cooking and her father's laugh before the gambling took him. She told him about markets bursting with color and music that made your bones vibrate. She told him about home. He listened with complete attention, asking questions, actually interested. When she asked about his childhood, he hesitated, then shared small pieces. A mother who died when he was young. A father who taught him that emotions were liabilities. A grandfather who groomed him for leadership through pain. "I was 12 when I learned that loving people could kill you," he said quietly. "There was a girl I liked. Just a classmate. Innocent. Someone found out. They took her. Hurt her. As a message to my family." "Ha-jun." Tara breathed. She survived. But she was never the same. And I learned my lesson. His eyes met hers, dark with old pain. "I've kept everyone at a distance since then. It's safer. For them. That's why the rumors. That's why the rumors. Why the coldness. Why I've trained myself not to want." He stopped, jaw clenching. "Not to want what?" His gaze traced her face like he was memorizing it. "Everything I see when I look at you." The confession hung between them, heavy and electric. Tara's breath caught. Before she could respond, Ha-jun stood abruptly. It's late. You should sleep. He always did that. Gave her something real, then retreated. But this time, she saw his hands trembling slightly before he shoved them in his pockets. This time, she understood it wasn't rejection. It was fear. The breakthrough came on a rainy Tuesday evening. Tara was in the kitchen making tea when she heard a crash from the hallway, followed by cursing in Korean. She rushed out to find Hajun leaning against the wall, his right hand wrapped in a rapidly reddening handkerchief, broken glass scattered at his feet. What happened? She hurried to him. Nothing. I'm fine. He tried to pull his hand away. She held firm, gently unwrapping the handkerchief. A deep gash ran across his palm, still bleeding freely. This needs cleaning. Come on. Tara. Kitchen. Now. She used that same firm but gentle voice. To her surprise, he followed. She sat him at the island and gathered supplies, cleaning the wound with careful fingers. He watched her face the entire time, not even flinching when the antiseptic must have stung. How did this happen? She asked, applying bandage. Broke a glass. Wasn't paying attention. Because. His free hand came up, fingers ghosting along her jaw. The touch was featherlight, tentative, like he was touching something precious and breakable. Because I was thinking about you. About how you smile at the staff even though they whisper about you. About how you leave me dinner every night even though I've been nothing but cold. About how patient you are with a man who doesn't deserve it. Tara's hands stilled on his bandage. Hajun. I can't stop thinking about you. The words came out rough, almost angry. I come home early just to catch glimpses of you. I stand outside your door at night like some pathetic fool, listening to you breathe. I see you everywhere, even when I close my eyes. She finished the bandage with trembling fingers. Why didn't you tell me? Because I'm terrified. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Because the moment I admit I want you, I make you a target. Because everyone I've ever cared about has been hurt because of me. Because loving you could get you killed. Loving me? Her voice came out whisper soft. He froze, seeming to realize what he'd said. His hand dropped. I didn't mean. She caught his face in both hands, forcing him to look at her. Don't take it back. Don't you dare take it back. Tara, you don't understand the danger. I understand that you're scared. I understand that you've been hurt. I understand that you think love is weakness. She moved closer, into the space between his knees. But I also understand that you've been alone for too long. That you're tired of being cold. That maybe, just maybe, you're ready to let someone in. His hands came up to grip her wrists, but he didn't push her away. Why aren't you afraid of me? Because I see who you're trying not to be. She repeated her words from before. And I think that person deserves to be loved. Deserves to be happy. Deserves to stop punishing himself for things that weren't his fault. Something broke in his expression. His forehead dropped to rest against hers, his breath shuddering. I can't protect you if I love you. I become irrational. Weak. Or maybe you become stronger. Maybe we both do. They stayed like that, breathing the same air, neither willing to move. Rain drummed against the windows. The kitchen lights hummed softly. In that moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them. I don't know how to do this, he whispered finally. Neither do I. We'll figure it out. His hands slid from her wrists to her waist, pulling her incrementally closer. This is dangerous. I know. You could get hurt. I know. I might not be able to stop myself. His voice dropped lower, rougher. Once I start wanting you, I won't be able to stop. Her heart hammered. Then don't stop. He pulled back just enough to look at her, and what she saw in his eyes made her breath catch. Want. Need. Fear. Hope. All tangled together in an expression so vulnerable it hurt to witness. Tara. Her name came out like a prayer. Yes. Tell me to stop. I won't. Tell me you don't want this. I can't. His control snapped. His mouth crashed against hers, desperate and hungry and completely undone. She gasped against his lips, and he swallowed the sound, one hand tangling in her hair while the other gripped her waist. The kiss was everything she'd imagined and nothing like it, fierce and tender, taking and giving. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to hers again. I tried so hard not to want you, he breathed. Then stop trying. He laughed, the sound ragged. Too late. God, Tara, it's too late. He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. You're what? I'm in love with you. The confession came out broken. I've been in love with you since you brought me tea that first time. Since you looked at me like I was worth worrying about. Since you smiled at me despite everything. His hands cupped her face. I'm in love with you and I'm terrified and I don't know how to keep you safe. Tears burned her eyes. You're not supposed to keep me safe. We're supposed to keep each other safe. I don't deserve you. That's not your choice to make. I'm already yours, Ha-jun. I have been for weeks. You're the only one who hasn't noticed. He kissed her again, softer this time, reverently. Stay with me tonight. In your room, in my room, in my bed, in my life. His thumb traced her lower lip. I don't want you on the other side of the mansion anymore. I don't want you far away. I want you close. Always. Your grandfather can go to hell. This is my house, my life, my wife. He said the last word with such possessive intensity it made her shiver. I'm done pretending. Done hiding. You're mine, Tara. And I'm yours. Let the whole house know it. That night, she fell asleep in Ha-jun's arms, his heartbeat steady under her ear, his fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder. The bed was warm. The room smelled like him. And for the first time since arriving in Seoul, she felt like she was home. She woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and Ha-jun's arm draped across her waist. He was already awake, watching her with soft eyes. Hi, she whispered. Hi. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. Sleep well. Better than I have in months. Me too. His fingers traced lazy circles on her back. I meant what I said last night. About not hiding. About claiming you. I know. My world is dangerous, Tara. There will be people who try to use you against me. Who'll see you as weakness. Let them try. His eyes darkened. You don't understand what they're capable of. Then teach me. Train me. Prepare me. She pushed up on one elbow, looking down at him. But don't push me away again. I can handle danger, Ha-jun. What I can't handle is you shutting me out. He pulled her down into a kiss that tasted like promise and possession. You're extraordinary, you know that? I'm stubborn. That too. He smiled against her mouth, and her heart stuttered. She'd never seen him smile like that. Free. Happy. Hers. The days that followed felt like walking through a dream. Ha-jun moved her things into his room personally, carrying her clothes with a possessive tenderness that made her chest ache. He canceled afternoon meetings to have lunch with her. He held her hand under the table during dinners. He kissed her in hallways like he couldn't help himself. The staff noticed immediately. Whispers turned from pity to shock to knowing smiles. Mrs. Cho, the head housekeeper, winked at Tara one morning and said in Korean, I knew the young master just needed the right woman. But not everyone was pleased. Ha-jun's grandfather arrived on Thursday, his expression thunderous. My office. Now. He didn't even look at Tara, but the dismissal was clear. Ha-jun's hand tightened on hers. Anything you say to me, you can say in front of my wife. Your wife is the problem. Watch your tone. The old man's eyes narrowed. You're showing weakness. Everyone's talking about how you can't leave her side. How you're distracted in meetings. This is exactly what I warned you about. Then you wasted your breath. Ha-jun's voice dropped to that dangerous softness. Tara stays. She's not going anywhere. And anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly. You're making her a target. I'm making her my priority. There's a difference. He pulled Tara closer. This conversation is over. They walked away, leaving the old man sputtering. Tara waited until they were alone in their room before speaking. He's right about one thing. I make you vulnerable. No. Ha-jun turned her to face him. You make me human. You make me remember why I'm fighting. You make me stronger, not weaker. Your grandfather disagrees. My grandfather built an empire on fear and isolation. I'm choosing a different path. His hands framed her face. With you. If you'll have me. I already said yes once. When I married you. That was obligation. I'm asking you to choose me now. Knowing what it means. Knowing the danger. She kissed him instead of answering, pouring everything she felt into it. When they broke apart, he was smiling. I'll take that as a yes. The first real test came 2 weeks later. Tara was shopping in Gangnam, two of Ha-jun's men trailing discreetly behind, when someone grabbed her arm in a quiet alley between shops. Mrs. Kong. The man's smile was cold. Your husband and I have business to discuss. The bodyguards moved instantly, but more men appeared. 6 against 2. Tara's heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. My husband doesn't discuss business through intimidation. He will for you. The man's grip tightened. You're quite the weak spot, aren't you? The great Hajun Kang, brought low by a pretty foreign face. Before Tara could respond, a familiar voice cut through the tension. Let her go. Hajun appeared at the alley's entrance, and something in his expression made grown men flinch. He looked lethal, every inch the dangerous air she'd heard rumors about but never truly seen. Now, Kang, we were just. You touched my wife. Hajun's voice was eerily calm. You put your hands on what's mine. Do you understand what that means? The man released her immediately. Tara stumbled, and Hajun was there, catching her, pulling her against his chest. She felt his heart thundering, felt the tension in every muscle. Are you hurt? He asked softly. No, I'm fine. His arms tightened around her. Then he looked at the man who'd grabbed her, and his expression went glacial. You have 3 seconds to run before I forget I'm trying to be a better man. They ran. In the car ride home, Hajun held her hand so tightly it almost hurt. When they reached the mansion, he pulled her straight to their room, locked the door, and finally let his control break. I could have lost you. His voice shook. 5 more minutes but you didn't. I'm here. I'm safe. Because I got lucky. Because my men called me immediately. Because he stopped chest heaving. This is what I was afraid of. This is why I tried to keep you at distance. And look how well that worked. She took his face in her hands. I'm not leaving, Hajun. Not because of threats. Not because of danger. I'm staying right here. You're insane. Probably. But I'm your insane wife, so you're stuck with me. He kissed her then, desperate and claiming, his hands everywhere like he needed to prove she was really there. When they tumbled into bed, it wasn't just physical. It was emotional. Raw. Real. A claiming that went both ways. Afterward, lying tangled together, Hajun traced patterns on her shoulder. I'm increasing your security, he said quietly. Okay. And I'm teaching you self-defense. Okay. And I'm going to destroy the man who touched you. Hajun. Not negotiable. His eyes met hers hard. He threatened what's mine. There are consequences. She should have been scared by the coldness in his voice. Instead, she felt protected. Safe. Claimed in a way that should have been possessive, but just felt right. Just don't get yourself hurt, she whispered. His expression softened. I have too much to come home to now. The weeks turned into months. Hajun kept his promises. Her security doubled. He spent his mornings teaching her to fight, patient and thorough. The man who'd grabbed her disappeared from Seoul, though Hajun never told her the details and she didn't ask. Their relationship deepened. She learned his tells, the tiny expressions that revealed his moods. He learned her rhythms, waking before she did to watch her sleep, waiting up no matter how late his meetings ran. They cooked together, laughed together, built a life together that was theirs, not just convenient. One evening, 3 months after their first kiss, they hosted dinner for Hajun's associates. Tara wore traditional Nigerian attire, stunning in gold and green. Hajun couldn't keep his eyes off her. During dessert, one of the younger men made a subtle dig. Must be nice, having such a decorative wife. The table went silent. Hajun set down his wine glass with careful precision. Say that again, he said softly. I just meant. My wife, Hajun interrupted, his voice carrying to every corner of the room, is the smartest, strongest, most extraordinary person I've ever met. She runs this household with more efficiency than most of you run your territories. She speaks 4 languages. She can outthink, outplan, and likely outfight half the people at this table. He turned to look at Tara, and his expression softened. And she chose me. Chose this life. Chose to stand beside me despite every reason to run. He looked back at the young man. So if you'd like to keep breathing, I suggest you show her the respect she deserves. Dead silence. Then one of the older associates started to clap slowly. Others joined. Soon the entire table was applauding, toasting Tara, acknowledging her not as decoration, but as Hajun's equal. Later, in their room, Tara wrapped her arms around him from behind. Thank you, she whispered against his back. He turned in her embrace. For what? For defending me. For claiming me. For being exactly who you are. I'm not a good man, Tara. I've done terrible things. You're my man. That's enough. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. I love you. I'll never stop loving you. Even when you drive me crazy. Even when I don't deserve it. Even when. She silenced him with a kiss. I know. I love you too. They made love slowly that night, savoring each touch, each whispered word. And when Tara finally fell asleep, safe in Ha-jun's arms, she dreamed of a future that was theirs to build. The final transformation came unexpectedly. Ha-jun's grandfather called a family meeting 6 months into the marriage. The old man had been conspicuously absent, his disapproval clear. Now he stood in the mansion's formal sitting room, his expression unreadable. I oppose this marriage, he said without preamble. I thought the girl would be a distraction, a weakness, a liability. Ha-jun's arm tightened around Tara's waist, protective. But I was wrong. The old man's gaze landed on Tara. You've made him stronger. Focused. Human. For the first time since his mother died, I see my grandson smile. He bowed slightly. Welcome to the family, granddaughter. Truly welcome. Tara felt tears prick her eyes. Ha-jun pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. That night, alone in their room, he finally told her everything. About his mother's death. About the trauma of leadership. About the walls he'd built and the isolation he'd chosen. And about how she dismantled it all with patience and love. I wasn't gay, he said, a smile playing at his lips. In case that wasn't completely obvious by now. She laughed, swatting his chest. I figured that out. When? When did you know for sure? That first kiss in the kitchen. Before that, honestly. The way you looked at me. The way you couldn't seem to stay away even when you wanted to. He trapped her against the mattress, hovering over her with mischief in his eyes. You know what I love about you? What? Everything. Your strength. Your kindness. The way you laugh. The way you stood up to my grandfather. The way you're not afraid of me even when you probably should be. He kissed her softly. The way you saw through all my defenses and decided I was worth the trouble. You are worth it, she whispered. Every moment. They lost themselves in each other, in the love they'd built from obligation and fear, in the future that stretched before them. And when dawn painted the sky pink, Ha-jun held his wife close and finally felt at peace. The rumors never quite disappeared. People still whispered, still wondered. But Ha-jun Kang didn't care anymore. Let them talk. Let them speculate. He had everything that mattered right here in his arms. One lazy Sunday morning, Tara woke to find Ha-jun watching her again, that soft expression that was hers alone on his face. What? She asked, smiling. Just thinking. About? About that day in the dining room. When you asked if I was gay. She groaned, covering her face. Don't remind me. I was so awkward. You were brave. And when you asked. He pulled her hands away from her face, kissing her knuckles. When you asked, I panicked. Because I knew in that moment that I couldn't hide from you anymore. That you'd see right through me. And, she prompted, running her fingers through his hair. And I gave you the most dangerous answer I could. His smile turned wicked. Why don't we find out? You were flirting with me. I was terrified of you. He pulled her closer, his voice dropping. Still am, sometimes. You have this power over me, Tara. You undo me with a single look. Good, she whispered against his lips. Because you undo me too. They spent the morning in bed, talking and laughing and making love with the lazy contentment of two people who had all the time in the world. Later, over breakfast on their private terrace, Tara noticed Ha-jun seemed distracted, his fingers drumming against his coffee cup. What is it? She asked. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Her breath caught. I know we're already married, he said, opening it to reveal a stunning ring, diamonds and emeralds woven together. But I never asked you properly. Never gave you a choice. Never told you what you mean to me. He took her hand. Tara Onyema Kang, will you marry me again? Not because of debt or obligation or arrangement, but because I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. Tears streamed down her face. Yes. 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, like it was always meant to be there. Then he kissed her with such tenderness that her heart ached with the sweetness of it. When? She asked when they broke apart. Whenever you want. We can have a real wedding. Invite your family from Nigeria. Do it properly this time. I don't need a big wedding, Hajun. I just need you. You have me, he promised. For the rest of my life, you have all of me. 3 months later, they renewed their vows in a private ceremony. Tara's mother flew in from Lagos, weeping with joy when she saw how her daughter glowed. Hajun's grandfather officiated, his approval now absolute. The house staff decorated the gardens with white roses and traditional Nigerian fabrics. It was small, intimate, and perfect. When Hajun lifted Tara's veil, his eyes were suspiciously bright. I was lost before you, he said softly, just for her. Cold and alone and convinced that was how I had to stay. But you found me anyway. You saw past all the walls and the rumors and the fear, and you loved me. You saved me, Tara. We saved each other, she whispered back. Their kiss was met with cheers and applause. Later, during the reception, Tara's mother pulled her aside. He looks at you like you hung the moon, she said in Igbo, wiping happy tears. I love him, Mama. More than I knew I could love anyone. I can see that, my daughter. I can see it in both of you. She squeezed Tara's hand. Your father would be so proud. Not of the arrangement, but of the love you've built from it. That night, alone in their room, Hajun slowly unzipped Tara's wedding dress, pressing kisses along her spine. Mrs. Kang, he murmured against her skin. Mr. Kang, she replied, turning in his arms. I have something to confess. Oh, that first night, when I gave you all those rules about separate rooms and no expectations, he smiled sheepishly. I broke my own rules within a week. I wanted you so badly I could barely breathe around you. Then why didn't you? Because I was terrified. Because wanting you meant acknowledging that love wasn't weakness, it was strength. That needing you didn't make me vulnerable, it made me whole. His hands cupped her face. You terrified me, Tara. You still do. In the best possible way. She pulled him down to the bed, and they spent their second wedding night the way they'd spent so many nights before, lost in each other, in whispered words and gentle touches, in the quiet certainty that they'd found something rare and precious and worth fighting for. The months turned into a year. Then 2. Life settled into a beautiful rhythm. Hajun's business dealings became less dangerous as he worked to legitimize more of the family empire. Tara started a foundation helping immigrant women in Seoul, using her own experience to guide others. They traveled to Nigeria, where Hajun charmed her entire extended family, and to Jeju Island, where they spent lazy weeks on private beaches. The whispers never completely stopped, but they changed. Now people spoke of Hajun Kang's transformation. How love had softened his edges without dulling his strength. How his foreign wife had brought light into the cold Kang mansion. How the untouchable heir had become touchable, human, happy. One evening, 2 years after their first kiss in the kitchen, Tara found Hajun in his study, staring at an old photograph. She recognized it immediately, the young girl he'd mentioned once. The one who'd been hurt because of him. I saw her last week, he said quietly as Tara wrapped her arms around him from behind. She's married now. Happy. She told me she never blamed me. That it wasn't my fault. It wasn't, Tara said firmly. I'm starting to believe that. He turned to look at her. Because of you. You taught me that loving someone doesn't mean destroying them. That being vulnerable doesn't equal being weak. That I deserve. He stopped, emotion thick in his voice. Deserve what? To be happy. To be loved. To have this. He gestured around them, encompassing their life, their home, their love. All of this. She kissed him softly. You deserve everything, Hajun. Every bit of happiness. Every moment of peace. Every ounce of love I have to give. I don't know what I did to deserve you. You were yourself. Broken and scared and trying so hard to be good despite everything. That's what I fell in love with, not the powerful heir or the dangerous man, but the person underneath who just wanted to be seen. He pulled her into his lap, burying his face in her neck. I love you. God, Tara, I love you so much it scares me sometimes. I know. I love you too. They sat like that for a long time, holding each other as the Seoul skyline glittered outside the windows. 2 broken people who'd found each other in the most unexpected way, who'd built something beautiful from obligation and fear, who'd chosen love even when it terrified them. Later that night, as they lay in bed, Hajun's hand rested on Tara's stomach, his touch reverent. I want to have children with you, he said quietly. I want to fill this cold mansion with warmth and laughter and tiny humans who have your smile and your kindness. Tara's breath caught. Really? Really? I want to be the kind of father mine never was. Want to teach our children that love is strength, not weakness. Want to show them what a real partnership looks like. He looked at her, vulnerable and hopeful. If you want that too. I want that, she whispered. I want everything with you. His kiss was tender, full of promise and possibility. Then let's build it. Together. Together, she agreed. 6 months later, Tara stood in their bathroom, staring at a positive pregnancy test with shaking hands. When Ha-jun came home from a meeting, she was waiting in their room, nervous and excited. What's wrong? He asked immediately, reading her expression. She held up the test wordlessly. For a moment, he just stared. Then his face transformed, joy and wonder and fear and love all mixing together in an expression so beautiful it made her cry. He crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms. We're having a baby, he breathed against her hair. We're having a baby, she confirmed. He pulled back to look at her, and she saw tears tracking down his cheeks. I'm going to be a father. The best father, she promised. He sank to his knees, pressing his forehead to her still flat stomach. Hi, little one, he whispered. I'm your daddy. And I promise, I'm going to love you and your mother with everything I have. You're going to grow up knowing that love isn't weakness. That family is everything. That you're wanted and cherished and safe. Tara ran her fingers through his hair, her own tears flowing freely. This man. This beautiful, broken, healed man who'd become her everything. The pregnancy transformed Ha-jun in ways Tara hadn't expected. He became even more protective, insisting she reduce her foundation work, hiring a nutritionist, reading every pregnancy book he could find. He talked to her stomach every night, telling their baby stories about Korea and Nigeria, about their unusual love story, about all the adventures they'd have as a family. You're going to spoil this child rotten, Tara said one evening as Ha-jun arranged yet another prenatal vitamin on her bedside table. Absolutely, he agreed without shame. This baby is going to have everything. Love, safety, happiness, freedom to be whoever they want to be. Even if they don't want to take over the family business. Especially then. He pulled her close. I want them to have choices I never had. Want them to know they're loved for who they are, not what they can do for the family. When their daughter was born on a snowy December evening, Ha-jun cried. He held the tiny, perfect baby in his arms and wept like something in him had fundamentally healed. They named her Hope, both in English and Korean, a blend of their worlds. She's perfect, he whispered, tracing her tiny features. She's absolutely perfect. She has your eyes, Tara said from the hospital bed, exhausted and glowing. She has your smile. Ha-jun looked at his wife and daughter, his entire world contained in one room. Thank you. For this. For everything. For teaching me how to love. The years that followed were full. They had 2 more children, a son they named James, after Tara's father, and another daughter they named Minesio. The cold mansion transformed into a warm home, filled with laughter and toys, and the beautiful chaos of family life. Ha-jun proved to be exactly the father he'd promised, patient and loving, teaching his children Korean and Igbo, taking them to both Seoul's markets and Lagos beaches, showing them that their mixed heritage was something to celebrate. He taught them self-defense, but also empathy, strength but also kindness. And through it all, his love for Tara never wavered. If anything, it deepened. He still watched her sleep sometimes, still brought her tea, still kissed her like he couldn't believe she was real. And she still saw him, really saw him, past the power and the danger to the heart underneath. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they returned to the kitchen where everything had changed. The children were with Ha-jun's grandfather for the evening, and they had the mansion to themselves. Remember the first time I brought you tea? Tara asked, leaning against the counter where he'd once sat bleeding and vulnerable. I remember everything, Ha-jun said, pulling her close. I remember thinking you were the most dangerous person I'd ever met because you made me want things I'd sworn I'd never have. And now? Now I know you're the best thing that ever happened to me. He kissed her softly. You saved me, Tara. From loneliness. From fear. From myself. We saved each other, she corrected, like she always did. We did. He smiled, that free, happy smile that was hers alone. And I'd do it all again. Every moment, every fear, every uncertainty. Because it led me here. To you. To our family. To this life we've built. Even the part where you thought you had to pretend to be gay? He laughed, the sound rich and warm. Especially that part. Because it gave me an excuse to say those words. What words? His eyes darkened with heat and love and mischief. Why don't we find out? She pulled him down to kiss her, and they made love right there in the kitchen, in the place where everything had begun, where walls had crumbled and hearts had opened.